So fantastic, thanks so much for the introduction. We have a great panel today. Actually, we have two of our guests here. Would you like to come on stage quickly and join us? And I think we have two panelists as well that are online. I don't know. I can see Nicholas and Co here.
What were you saying?
Do we get to see them on screen as well?
Speaking about
Tech team, maybe? Fantastic. Okay, cool. So we have an incredible panel talking about Web3 and the metaverse, talking a little bit about adoption here. It's quite cool because we actually have people in the metaverse that are going to be talking about all these great things today as well. So maybe we start a little bit with a round of introductions and we can kind of take it from there. Maybe you want to start, Alexander? We can take it. Yeah.
Hello, hello. Okay. Thanks for the intro. Nice to meet you. I know it's always tough to be in the second day, so the room is lightened a bit. I've been in last year already. My name is Alex Schlicher. I'm the CEO and founder of Fancy, a Frankfurt-based Web3 company providing, I'd say, immersive experiences for sports and entertainment fans, using features of 3D and other immersive stuff that you find in digital spaces. And we're based locally here, have colleagues working in Austria and Holland, and actually enjoying the remote stuff quite a lot. So hope we have a lot of people online watching as well. Konstantin?
Yeah, does work, yes. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Nice being here. Hello all together. First of all, it's the first time that Alex and I are on the same panel, so we've been on many conferences and now it's the first time. So, and hi Nico and hi Frank. My name is Konstantin. I'm from PwC Germany and I'm part of the sports business advisory team. I'm leading the sports business advisory there and I'm also part of the crypto assets team. So I'm trying to combine those two areas and like 1.5 or 2 years ago, I realized that Web3 and sports is a perfect match. So I looked at the market for almost 2 years now, and we developed some solutions and have now a great network in sports regarding Web3. And I will mostly focus with my examples, I guess, on sports because that's where my biggest expertise is. And I think sports is a very interesting area. It's a very interesting stage, and to see how Web3 develops, in the context of sports, how the adoption might be accelerated through the let's say, very big stage of sports which sports offers.
Fantastic. Nicholas, if you want to take it next, if you can hear us.
Perfect. Hey guys, greetings from Hong Kong. I'm Nicholas, founder of MetaGameUp. We're basically a one-stop solution for the metaverse where we are streamlining investing, bidding, and experiencing, specifically for businesses and creators. And yeah, our mission is really to push metaverse adoption forward through an interoperable platform, right, that we're building, and looking forward to this amazing panel.
Hi everyone, hello from Paris. I'm Frank, one of the founding partner of True Global Ventures, which is a Web3 dedicated VC fund, decentralized in 20 different cities across the globe, from San Francisco to Singapore. We are one of the early lucky investors into Sandbox, which is one of the well-known Open Metaverse. And also we're invested in Animoca Brands. And voila, happy to contribute to the conversation. I'm also heading the open innovation activities within AXA. And I have helped a little bit the experience to explore insurance business into Sandbox recently.
Fantastic. Frank, thank you so much for joining us from Paris. The same, Nicholas, from Hong Kong, and of course, both of you here in Frankfurt. I think there's a lot to speak about when we talk about the adoption of Web3, when we talk about entering a little bit into the metaverse. I want to take a little bit of time within this panel to kind of decompose that into 4 main elements. So startup, scale up, enterprise, and then maybe a little bit on the public sector, kind of how the governments are approaching things. But let's kind of start off with what's maybe a little bit easier, as of course startups are able to innovate in a much easier way, dynamic way than some other companies. So maybe Alexander, you can give us some context to how Fancy has been innovating within the Web3, within the kind of metaverse world, and how you maybe even bridging kind of reality with virtual reality.
Thanks. So, by the way, we haven't prepared the questions, so I'm actually curious how all the answers are going to pan out. I mean, Fancy, I don't want to talk about Fancy at all. I think it's more about talking how we believe, or how many people believe, future customers are going to interact with corporations. I worked 20 years in capital markets, and I'm a big fan of crypto and blockchain. And I think in the beginning, no one believed in blockchain. And the reason why it's so awfully successful is because it's digitally authentic. It can't be falsified. I mean, the user can be hacked, of course, but blockchain, I mean, all the merits of blockchain are super strong. And of course, there is more than just financial services. And I think for us as a company, and also for me personally, it was super important to find a use case for normal people, for everyday people, like sports fans and entertainment fans. And if you looked at how gaming developed, I'm not sure how many of you are actual gamers. In the early days of the crypto asset conference, there were a lot of geeks and nerds, because most of crypto actually starts with tech. It's not financial service, it starts with tech. And a lot of gaming people have quite a natural connection to metaverse and 3D spaces, and how to kind of look at the globe as one platform rather than geographies. So for us, it was important to find the future customer and what could be beneficial for them. So we created digitally authentic stuff originating from what we believe are really important for fans. That could be football clubs, that could be federations, that could be entertainment stars, that could be anything. And we specialized on specific items in that ecosystem, like we create digital merch, but you could also do that with tickets, or do it with other real life benefits. And just closing, and then maybe we pass on. But what we see when it comes to the adoption in the market, it's actually quite tricky. And you see the same thing then a couple of years ago with crypto. It's quite a small community that gets it, and the vast majority doesn't get it. So for us, the trick is to give users a real life utility. So we give them something digital, say for example, a digital merchandise product, but we have to attach something physical with it. And that could be a ticket to a real life event, that could be a hat, a jersey, a hoodie, or whatever, or even an Amazon voucher. But I think to reach mass adoption, you really have to give most existing current users, especially above 25, I think the young crowd usually gets it, but older people, and most of you guys apply actually, not just us, you have to make it tangible. What is the real benefit? If it's not a financial, of course, I mean, if you have a wallet and your Bitcoin suddenly triples and you have $40,000 more in your bank account, I think it's pretty easy to calculate what is the benefit. But if it is non-financial, you really have to make a case so people start changing their everyday behavior. So it's all around UX and actually tangible benefits. So this is where we are at the moment.
Yeah, changing bad habits is always quite a hard one. And maybe if we touch upon one of the elements that you just raised, so it is tricky. It is tricky for audiences to get involved in Web3. It's tricky for companies even to get involved. And I'd say, Konstantin, bringing this to you now, at PwC, that's kind of where you reign, right? Tricky problems, you solve them for various organizations, right? Or at least I would say that's the case. Maybe you can give us some context on how you yourselves, within a space that is moving at light years ahead, it's very fast moving, how do you stay on top of innovation, and how do you help make some of these tricky problems less tricky?
Yeah, thanks for that. Maybe first of all, when talking about adoption, let's see where we're currently standing. So, and if we compare it like with the early stages on the internet, probably it's nothing too new. I mean, it started like with a CD-ROM or a disk. You needed to put in to use the internet, and then you had to use the same line as the phone, right? So, and then we had like the broadband, and we had like the social media coming, then the mobile phones coming, and so on, and smartphones. So it developed, but like at the beginning, nobody knew how it will go on and what will be the platform or the application that will drive the utility and the the adoption. So, and if I can do this, so I think we're standing at the very beginning. So, but where Web3 is now is a good situation compared to where internet was like at the beginning, right? So you can't expect too much right now because there is a lot of, as you said, like startups. They're trying crazy ideas, and 95% of them will fail. 5% will be then scale up and so on, and then they will find a solution that is even more suitable for mass adoption and so on. But I think Web3 is also difficult to define which area will develop how fast. If you look, like, for example, at the Gartner hype cycle for Web3, so you would see like a lot of solutions. It's like Metaverse, it's DAOs, it's NFTs, it's oracles, whatever, right? So they're all different, okay? So, and depending on what you look, you will have different stages where the adoption is and how long it will take until we reach the plateau of productivity, right? Let's say. But if you look at sports, for example, so sports can have two. That's my example, and I can have like two perspectives. One of them is the adoption of Web3 in sports and the adoption of Web3 through sports, right? So sports is a great stage. So I think many industries will try to use sports as a stage. That is what was happening last year with a lot of investors' capital in the market. There was a lot of cases where startups try to use the big stage, the brands, the names, and so on to develop the reach and to reach a lot of people, but the difficulty is that the sports fan is not necessarily the Web3 fan, right? So there is also like a cultural, behavioral aspect in that. So I think this is something we will need to focus on later on. So not like technology, UX, UI, not just regulation, but also the cultural and behavioral aspect of the user. So I think the user mindset in Web3 is much more different, or should be much more different from the mindset of the Web2 user, right? Because there is much more the sense of, okay, I own something and I have to be part of it, right? So usually Web3 projects right now are like buying a token, going to Discord, and every week I'm posting like, when will they provide value, when I will receive the airdrop and so on. But the question should be, did I provide value to this project or just I buy tokens? So basically it's a Web2 idea wrapped in Web3 like NFT. So I think this has to change fundamentally. The mindset of the user plays a big role, and this has to be like very slowly communication and so on, right? So then will the adoption like go forward. And in sports itself, I think it will be even slower than through sports for other industries. So that's how I see the situation right now, and like the outlook forward with the cultural and the behavioral aspect.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's quite interesting to hear you saying that we're still quite early on, right? I think there's so many of us in this room that think that we're kind of late even to a certain extent, right? And so pulling back from what you're saying before with regards to 95% of startups are bound to fail, there's 5% out there that are going to succeed. Maybe, Frank, if we take this one to you there, as an investor, as investing in Sandbox, in Animoca brands that have a legacy of investing in some really great startups. I mean, how do you go about kind of determining what is going to be well adopted in the future of Web3?
Yeah, I think people will adopt the technology once they will have fun in the space, right? They need some fun at some point to adopt those technologies. So that's from a true global venture perspective. We are investing in 3 different verticals. First one is on infrastructure, which mean that we still need a couple of things to be done to make it maybe more easy or easier to use as a web developers. We invest in financial services because then people will need to buy and sell crypto stuff for sure and do transactions, transfer of value. And then we invest in entertainment because for sure in all the different web we had before, the Web 1, the Web 2, and the Web 3, entertainment has always been the reason why people are adopting those technologies. And in particular, gaming, where people can have fun first. And I think it's important. We might have lose a little bit of this idea while we were like all about NFTs, etc., a couple of months ago. But I think, yeah, the driver would be the fun. we need to take into consideration that those metaverse are a bit deceptive for the end consumers today, because they are in a construction phase. So what they see is not what they will get. What they see is what they can try to connect with, or even jump as maybe a freelancer builders on those metaverse to help to build experiences with a fair business model. And I think this is going alongside the fact that this is the metaverse are in construction phase, because then you have two options as a builders of metaverse experience. Either you go on Meta and then you will get only 45% of your revenue that you will generate on that metaverse, centralized version of metaverse. Either you go on Sandbox or others that are open metaverse, where you will get, like in Sandbox, 95% of the revenue that you will generate on those. So the business model has to be completely reshaped and reinvented to help those builders to actually make money. And then what we see is this type of metaverse going mainstream, because once you have different communities, and I think Sandbox again is a very good example. I mean, advanced example, getting from 5 agencies or studio across the globe to 250 in less than a year, to make it mainstream by bringing different experience from game to brand experience. So again, fun or boring experience, we will have to go for the fun. That's the main driver.
Of course, thank you. Let's keep it fun. I think that's a very, very relevant point. Nicholas, Frank touched upon many different parts here. I'd like to ask your opinion a little bit on what he said, especially from like kind of your company's perspective with Meta Game Hub. I'd also like to throw you one, as you're there in Hong Kong. We've met all over the world. Give me some perspective as well about adoption around the world. Do we see different rates of adoption around the world? I mean, you're in Hong Kong, you're not here in Frankfurt. You must be doing something there as well related to Web3 adoption. I mean, give us some context around that as well. And of course, feel free to comment on some of the things that Frank and our other panelists said.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think, first of all, I fully agree with Frank in terms of the fun component, because I think really the metaverse term itself has been widely abused in the last 2-3 years in terms of, very auspicious promises, so to say, that were brought to market, specifically in terms of consumer level adoption, where I believe before we can even really broadly talk about consumer level adoption, we need to have infrastructure standards in terms of businesses and creators, right? As for instance, Frank perfectly mentioned there, we have these worlds like Sandbox that are doing a great job in terms of onboarding these creators, providing them with, let's say, democratized ways of monetizing that is not dependent on third-party platforms in a sense, right? So I think in general, the metaverse to me, and actually, funnily, I was just coming back from a like small discussion at the American Chamber of Commerce here with a lot of guys that are coming from traditional industries, lawyers, regulators, and so on. And to them, the metaverse concept still is quite abstract, which I can totally understand, right? Because we have been in this industry overhyping that concept, I think, a bit. At the end, it's a new way of engaging with the internet. So kind of similar logics as in Web 2 in terms of engaging with this ecosystem applies still, right, in terms of the use cases. So I think we need to kind of categorize based on what are the utilities, whether it's social, whether it's commerce, whether it is just free flow of creativity, whether it is for pitching or marketing a product, right? And I think these really use cases need to be more highlighted. And from our side, for instance, with Meta Game Hub, that's really our focus, to set these infrastructure standards based on these utilities. I think also going to what Konstantin mentioned, sports, right? These type of industries that revolve around passion, similar to also, for instance, gaming, which is a low-hanging fruit. There's a higher degree of adoption, as we can see just because, you know, people don't necessarily want to follow a startup that's knocking on their door, or let's say even promising high incentives, right? We saw this with the lack of adoption in gaming for let's say GameFi ecosystems. For the traditional gamers, they don't really care about the money, right? They care about the fun, they care about brands and IP that they know, and therefore we really need to build these bridges, right, into the space. And in terms of the international perspective, I think, let's say, yeah, one thing that the EU, for instance, is now striving toward is harmonization of the market, right? With Mika, and in general, it is not just metaverse related, right? Which can, yeah, well, from one perspective, be seen as a positive thing. On the other hand, of course, we're not happy with everything that's in that agreement, but yeah, that's another rabbit hole. I think Asia specifically, what I'm experiencing now, is really yeah, one of the fastest growing ecosystems, and I see that, for instance, Sandbox has a very strong presence here, probably the strongest of these different worlds, right? And basically, I think compared to other regions, probably Asia is one of the top regions. That's, for instance, also part of the reason why I'm here currently. Was previously also in Singapore, which was quite interesting, more from a financial perspective, and I think in Hong Kong it's a bit more broad, right? Then Latin America, which we also focus on with Metagame, specifically from the creator economy, is quite interesting. So we work a lot with universities there, onboarding young talent, 3D modelers, designers, right? I think that's something that is also underestimated. So on the one hand, I think brands are a good kind of yeah, Trojan horse to push the adoption. At the same time, also education through universities, because a lot of the Web2, for instance, adoption happened especially in universities and the younger generation. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I think in terms of metaverse adoption, we really need to take a step back in general and move away from building more silos and move toward more interoperable standards, right? So it really is a seamless and fun and utility focused experience, right? We don't want to always log in and sign 100 different things when we, let's say, go to Amazon and just buy a good, right? And currently that is the case if we make purchases or transactions in general in Web3. And I think that's something that really needs to be worked and yeah, collaborated towards at the end.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks so much for that, Nicholas. And I think Frank would agree with me when I'd say that, you know, time flies when you're having fun. And we're kind of even close to the end of our panel now, and we haven't even scratched the surface. So maybe we can talk a little bit and bundle together kind of the startups, the scale up, the enterprise kind of side of things. Both of you guys work quite a lot within the sports sector, but we'll also kind of, let's say, bridging the gap between innovation and what's happening today. Konstantin spoke a little bit about, you know, we need to change mindset, right? We can't just have a Web2 thinking when we're looking at Web3. Maybe you can both here give me today about how are you working with some of those larger entities or entities that are well-funded and maybe have a too strict of a Web2 mentality. How are you bringing them into the Web3 adoption? Maybe you want to start, Alexander, and maybe have some concluding words as well.
Yeah, that was quite fast. I think Web3 adoption is going to be driven by the large entities. So what Konstantin said, that you actually get a lot of Web3 projects in a kind of a Web2 plus format. I'm not sure if this is deliberately done or maybe the incompetence of the I don't really know, but I think to reach the broad masses, you have to make it super easy. UX has to be super easy. It's almost like you don't feel that you have a wallet, or because for an end user, it doesn't make any difference whether it's Web3 or Web4 or whatever you might call it. It has to be fun. It has to be entertaining, and it has to enhance, or let's say it has to give value, full stop. Whatever value means for the end customer in the respective industry. And I think, and I actually would have had a question to Frank as a VC, because I think a lot of the innovation, of course, is driven from two ends. It's from like smaller entities, startups, and on the other hand, it is implemented into the masses through the large corporations. And I think they really do all of us a favor to provide use cases that work. So it's kind of, and our job is to enhance this journey with, you know, the individual benefits we can provide. But it's, I think it's actually quite a jumpy ride at the moment, because you know, sentiment is just getting back and better again. And I don't know, maybe in 2-3 years we're going to have steady state like we have in crypto these days. But I think we're really far away from mass adoption of Web3 and the larger entities and also VCs who are the fuel to this, let's say, innovation economy. I mean, they have to have the appetite to support this. I mean, without their money, the question is, do you kind of piggyback on some large corporate deal and then run with their agenda? I mean, so, you know, this is kind of, I mean, there's a lot of question marks here. So,
Can see that you're agreeing a lot there. Tell us more.
Yeah, Alex, a very good point. What you took from what I said previously. I didn't mean it's a bad thing, you know, that you use the Web3 toolset for basically a Web2 idea, because you have to start from somewhere, right? So we're very early, so it's okay, you know, to slowly, step by step, do the adoption. You start, of course, with the Web2 thinking, because that's what everybody understood. That's the mechanism that everybody knows, right? So and then you like develop step for step and going further to, I don't know, Web 2.1, 2.2, and so on. And Web3 is like a vision, like an idea, and you develop this from a Web2 standpoint, right? That's perfectly fine. That's nothing wrong. I think from today's perspective, what is probably very important if you talk like to these big companies, how they can, you know, implement Web3 and so on. It's of course education. So you have to do a lot of like workshops, talk a lot about what is Web3, how can you implement, how can you do the first step. You don't have to have like Web3 immediately. You can start Web 2.1, Web 2.2, whatever, right? So maybe it's the beginning in NFT and like a project, whatever. Maybe it's like a tokenization of assets and so on, right? You don't have to start like, okay, we're switching our complete company to a DAO or whatever. I'm sure it's not possible right now, but not like that. Up to now, it's like, okay, where is Web3? What is Web3? Is it the head of marketing or business development or the head of IT who should take care of that? So some of them, like one of them, like takes the lead and says, okay, we'll just do the project, and then it's more or less like I source it out and I buy in like with a service provider in Web3, like a company. They build something up for us. They set up Discord, whatever, right? So you're basically sourcing everybody out and you just put your label on that, right? And I think that has also to change a little bit. So we have to put the knowledge in the company. It has to become part of the culture of the company, right? And then you have to have this mindset of Web3 that the community is not just the customer, the community is also the developer, the creator, and so on. And this has to be like a platform, and you have to give like the free space for this platform to flourish, to develop. And that is like going from 2.0, Web 2.0 to Web 2.1, 2.2, and so on. And I think that will happen the more understanding is about what is Web3, what is blockchain, and so on. And you like learning slowly, step by step. But again, education is like one of the main points, most important points here. And that's what is happening a lot and getting more and more. And yeah.
Thank you. And I think to your point, I think everyone should get involved, CMO, CTO, and alike. I think we have really 60 seconds left. So I'm going to ask both of you, Frank and Nicholas here, in one sentence, give us your future of Web3 adoption. Hit us with that one-liner that you'd like to tell to all the audience.
Yeah, I think actually that Web2 is kind of broken. So we don't have the choice not working now on Web3, notably with the point of data privacy and the ownership of those data by the end users. So Web3 is mainly about that. And I believe, like I did for Web2 with the launch of social networks and smartphone, and with the Web1, I believe that the Web3 would be about the blockchain, etc., but also a lot about generative AI that could not actually work without the Web3 and without the blockchain to track the IP or the intellectual property of a couple of things, and also to generate that kind of new content that are key for the development of the third generation of the internet.
Fantastic. Thank you. When you ask a Frenchman for a one-liner, it gives you a whole novel. Nicholas, we have, I think, 10 seconds remaining. Do you have one last thing to say to the audience today?
Yes, learning by doing, right? Diversifying your bets and striving for decentralized infrastructure and applications. That's it, right? At the end, we all just have to try and not, we have to kind of forget or not forget how difficult at the beginning of the web in general it was. And yeah.
Fantastic. Very succinct. Thank you all for your time here. Great to see you all. Thanks for the great panel. Short and sweet, but it was really memorable. Thank you so much.